New book is available today. Scars and Stripes, an unapologetically American story of fighting the Taliban, UFC warriors, and myself. That's some serious opponents.
Yeah, the last one's the dumbest for sure.
You think so?
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt.
Yourself, you mean?
Yeah, that's the dumb one.
Yeah, I've done a lot of dumb shit too, and sometimes you look back, you're like, why did I do that?
No.
Do you regret it, or do you like, hey, I'm happy I can write about it?
Well, I'm not happy I did it because I could write about it. I was really happy about all the failures and struggles, and that's kind of what the book is about. My first wrestling tournament I ever went to, I got obliterated, humiliated, pinned in like a matter of seconds at like, a little gymnasium in a podunk town by a nobody wrestler, and it just looked silly. This is not the 2022 where everybody got a participation trophy for, like everybody, two guys didn't get their hands raised. Like I stood there like a loser, my dad in this gymnasium looking at me. And like that just like burned so like it was like acid through my soul. And those were the things that, if you talk to any of my coaches at Jackson, Winklejohn, any of my training partners, like this guy is relentless in his training. And it was because of losing and having had to feel the sting of shame and, having Jacare's hand be raised as I stood there, not called world champion.
When I was in 8th grade, a lot of people don't know, I wrestled for the entire season. I got 0 victories. I went to a tournament and lost 3 times in one day. And you know what I did? Quit. After that, I quit. I never came back. I quit. That's the difference.
I mean, that is the difference, though, but people talk so often, frequently about like these magical, beautiful moments of the picturesque summit as they reach the top of Everest, right? But like you missed all the moments like where the bottom of their feet were falling off, where you didn't see the pictures of me losing as a 10-year-old. You saw me in the octagon against Michael Bisping and Robbie Lawler. Like those were the moments that are important that I think most people overlook.
But those humiliations, childhood humiliations, really motivate, I think, more than anything. I think they motivate more than childhood glory is the things that you look back at that are just like almost like they're self-defining. Like, oh God, that one really burned a hole in me.
Yeah, and you never forget them.
And we're taking that from people now. This book, Nick Palmisciano, co-author of Scars and Stripes, just sat down. We had trouble getting in this building.
Yeah.
We got to make sure. There's a lot of
it's safe.
Yeah. We got to make sure we're all safe.
For various
guys
characters.
like you.
But like in this era of, the 2022 political correctness, not hurting feelings, helicopter parenting, this is damaging our youth. And on the military side, we but you even go down another level to like airborne operations. We have people getting hurt more frequently now than ever in history. I mean, you go all the way back to World War II. Like D-Day just happened yesterday, 78th anniversary. Way to go, guys! Beat Nazis.
Shout out.
Woo woo. Very few of them are left alive. But we're weaker. Our bones are weaker. Like the youth that are coming through airborne school, they're not facing the same rigor that a kid that grew up in the 80s jumping off of BMX bikes that we built on jumps off the curb. So like I feel that we're really taking away from this generation the opportunity to feel failure and also the opportunity to feel pain
and to feel unpleasantness. Like these things like trigger warnings where you're trying to protect people from even seeing images or information that they might find objectionable. It's like, well, how else are you supposed to know how to process it and deal with it if you're not seeing it and working through it?
It is something weird, though, with the amount of information that people have now, right? Like, just like the fact that people are inundated with information everywhere. Like, that's something we never had to deal with. Like, just the idea of just this influx of everything hitting us all at once. 24 hours a day, all the time.
I grew up in like a really Socratic household, and
what is that, Socratic?
Socrates.
Socratic.
Okay. Law school. Most law schools are Socratic. My dad, my mom would call us living room lawyers. We'd sit down and would argue about a topic, like intentionally argue. We would debate what is the best thing. And we'd have to come in prepared. You'd have to become researched. You'd have to understand the topic. Wow. You'd have to be respectful. Like we had really clear rules about how we were going to argue over this.
It was just like you just did debate.
Yeah, we did debates in the living room.
That's a wild
How would
thing.
you pick a side, too? Because you have to debate sometimes a side you
don't even
against.
believe
No,
in.
you usually have to debate and defend a side that you disagreed with. So if I was like, no, I want to be able to ride my motorcycle or my bicycle off the Via Bridge into the Atascadero Creek, which is about like 60 feet up, my dad's like, okay, well, that's what you want to do, but you're going to juxtaposition this, and you're going to have to argue why you shouldn't do it. And like I'd have to convince him. So regarding the amount of information, the only way that you can beat bad ideas is with good ideas. And right now we are curating, editorializing, and censoring ideas. And that's what's dangerous. I would rather have all of the information. I would rather have, like, even as a 40-something boomer, if you can call me that, I'm not quite there, but I would rather.
I feel like anybody who's over
30,
probably 28. Yeah, we're all boomers. Everybody in this room is a boomer.
And there was like, "Hey, boomer," is like anybody over the age of 30, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
But all right. But I'll take information and I'll beat it with good information. I'll take all the bad ideas and I'll beat it with good ideas. Just don't censor or try to dilute information.
Yeah, it's insulting, and it's implying that people can't take information and make a decision by themselves. Yep. And whenever I was in the category of people who know how to see bad information,
yeah, people do want to be protectors.
They want to be protectors. Yeah. It's bullshit.
It is.
Yeah.
Let them feel pain. Let them feel suffering. And give them all the information you can.
Yeah.
And this book, like, that really is driven home in Scars and Stripes. It's like, you need to suffer, you need to fail, you need to struggle. Nick, I've been friends with Nick for nearly 20 years. He was there when I lost close title fights, and through those fights in gloves and shorts in a trash can, he'd pull them out, taking notes about what was happening in fight camps. So here we are 20 years later.
Just kind of recording everything as it was happening?
Paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, he lives a wild life.
Yeah.
Like, he's gotten me into more trouble than I've been in the entirety of the rest of my life.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, literally.
We went to Afghanistan together during the fall of Afghanistan, like peak fall of Afghanistan. We're on a plane.
Like recently?
Yeah.
Oh, like in August.
Yeah.
We were two of the 12 idiots that were like middle-aged men, running around Afghanistan evacuating people.
Were you evacuating people who had helped Americans? Or were
That's
they
right.
American? Oh,
yeah. So
we were going for mostly terrorists.
No, I mean,
we're not. No, we're not. We're
gonna get some of you guys over here.
let me clarify. That sounded right. I was saying, were they Americans or like just kind of guys Afghans who had helped Americans?
Americans, SIVs.
But this is like peak. Like, this is people trying to jump onto the outside of airplanes.
That time.
That's wild.
They're leaving and we're landing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What motivated? Like, did you just know that was happening? Let's go over there. Did somebody say?
I don't know where. Again, back to information.
Yeah.
Where people were getting curated information. And they're like, man, I don't think the Taliban's going to be able to take over Afghanistan. And all of us are like, bro, the moment you leave, they will take that base. Like, the moment you even, like, give them an inkling that you're going to leave, they're going to go take that base. And that's exactly what happened. So base by base, inch by inch, as American forces started moving back into just Kabul, ultimately just became H-Kaya Airport. That's the only place that American forces were. The rest of the country was just overrun by Taliban. We knew that was immediately. Yeah. So we knew that was going to happen. And one of our friends, Chad Robichaux, his former translator, Aziz, was already getting death threats of like, hey, we're going to kill you. We're not going to kill you. We're going to leave you alive. And we're going to do terrible things to your family, especially your wife. And then we're going to kill you. And
his best friend had just been killed.
Yeah.
Aziz, who his contemporary that had essentially had the same job, had just been hunted and killed. And now they were looking for Aziz.
So we were two founders that stood up this organization called Save Our Allies. And 12,000 people in 10 days.
Did you guys have help from the government, or did you guys kind of have to go around circumvent?
We had, that's a really complex question.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I don't want to get in trouble.
I'll answer it. I'll answer that carefully.
Okay.
Crown Prince of UAE, and we asked if we could launch our operation from UAE, and the government of UAE said, we're going to give you one C-17, which is way more than we expect.
It's pretty rad.
We thought we were going to be using commercial planes, and if you can get anybody out safely, we'll give you another one.
Oh,
and that
was their mistake.
So
and there were only, how many of you were there?
So there's 4 guys on the ground, and
that's crazy.
And there was a total of 12 people between UAE, Washington D.C. and in Afghanistan.
Well,
how do you guys find people? Like, if there's somebody who's hiding from the Taliban or they're worried about being killed, how do you guys A, know about them, and B, know where to go and grab them and coordinate?
Who do you work for? I'm going to tell you this. These are
no.
There's literally tradecraft.
Yeah,
There's a really clear process. This bona fides of us being like a far recognition signal and near recognition signal. Then they have to give us a whole bunch of digital documents that then we confirm in person. And their name has to be cross-referenced off a terrorist hit list. We have to make sure that they actually have a Department of State SIV, P1, green card, American,
bunch of stuff. Yeah,
wild. All the things that we had to do before we put somebody on a bus, and then had to smuggle. When we had to sneak them onto HKIA, we had to get past the Taliban checkpoints, and then we had to get them onto HKIA base, and then we had to get them onto our ramp, onto a plane, and then fly them out of that country. Then we lily pad operations, so we flew out of Afghanistan and we'd go to somewhere else, Qatar, UAE, and then we would move them to the final destination. Just to like paint the picture, 100,000 people were moved out during the fall of Afghanistan, and we have moved 17,000 of them as a nonprofit.
So there's 12 of you. That's almost 20%.
Yeah,
right?
A total of like the American government, the Australian, everybody on the planet. This organization, and there's really 4 of us now, and 12 at the time.
Yeah, we got very, very efficient with what we were doing. So day 1 was 26 people, and the last day was just over 2,000. And we thought we had a few more days.
Yeah, we thought the bombing happened, and that changed everything.
Is that when you know we got to go?
Yeah. When we got back, when Nick was saying that we didn't, I've tried to kill him multiple times now.
Yeah.
We just got back from Ukraine last week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know is that what you're in the? Are you trying to get people out of Ukraine? Or are you just trying to help them there? Or we don't need to talk about everything.
It's like first, we're on, can we cuss on Sirius?
Sure.
Yeah. Fuck Russia.
Okay.
Yeah, and Putin can fuck off.
Okay, so you're not on the side of Putin on this one.
No.
Okay.
They're pretty anti-communist here. Yeah, as they're
All right,
like burning and turning cities into rubble and using as civilians as hostages and shields. It's the war crimes that the atrocities that they've already committed that you will never see the light, that will never see the light of day, that will never be talked about. Like next door at Fall, that he should burn in hell in like the darkest depths of hell for forever.
Are you surprised too by the amount, like, because we politicize everything in our country, like everything is my side or your side, the amount of people that are almost just trashing Ukraine and defending Putin, you see it. I'm surprised by the amount of people in our public who's actually somewhat siding with Putin on this.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we, from masks to vaccines to Russia to like, it's always divided.
Yeah.
And it makes zero sense. I don't think it really is. I think it's the algorithms of social media that are so divisive, and like people are in echo chambers, and it feels like it's divided. But then when you actually just have conversations with people, like opposing political view type people, and you're like, oh, so we both don't like Putin because he's a murderer,
Right?
Well, okay, cool. Like, we're on the opposite side of the aisle here, I guess. Okay. Bump knuckles?
Yeah.
Nice.
But then you'll talk to one person, and you're like, oh, you are Twitter. Okay, it takes one person who'll go, no, it's Biden. You're like, all right, I got it.
Okay. Take a breath. Your neck veins coming out, bro. Yeah, it's wild, man.
Is it sad for you? How do you feel when like you see what's going on in the Ukraine, right? And you see it firsthand, and you see how crazy it is, and then you come over and you're like, wait, nobody's talking about this anymore because they're all talking about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
For me, the super frustrating thing is, we just spent a bunch of time in Ukraine, quietly. The team that we have over there is made up. The leader of the team we have over there is one of the guys that was with us in Afghanistan. Absolute stud.
One of the brightest humans on the planet, and there's maybe only a few people on the planet that can do what he does, and he is doing it in multiple different theaters. Hopping from Afghanistan, and then he beat Putin into Ukraine. He knew what was going to happen and was walking through the snow to make it into Ukraine through an illegal border crossing.
Wow.
Like, talk about gangster.
Yeah.
This dude is a freaking hero.
Yeah.
I love you, man.
So we're out there, and we're seeing what's really happening, and we're doing work to bring. We've evacuated a number of people, to include the folks that were killed or injured from Fox, and we're bringing logistics to places no one else can bring logistics to, whether it's food or fuel or whatever. And then we get home, and people are making comments on his social media or my social media, and we would correct them. So that's actually not what's happening. And they would just say, oh, you guys don't understand. Or like,
it's not on my social that we were in Ukraine. It's not on his,
Right.
And they're like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. It's like, cool, neat.
Yeah.
Cool.
You've seen firsthand the stupidity of people's reaction when they think they know something you don't know.
It's ridiculous.
But there is no shining armor in the story. The Ukrainian government is corrupt. Zelensky is corrupt. Putin is an evil terrorist. They'll be executed. Their families will be murdered if they don't do what he says. So there's not like a knight in shining armor in any of the story. But the true victim, like always, are the people, and the people whose homes are burnt and turned to rubble, and that are caught in the middle of this. And that's...
But just playing a little devil's advocate there, though, I mean, I think people could argue the same thing about our government.
Yeah.
You know, I think you look at any group of people in power and there's corruption. You know, but we're not storming across the border into Canada and murdering people.
Right.
And just straight murdering. Like it's not a war. It's you know, they're executing people on the way out when they don't win.
Yeah. And
Wow.
by design, because they're
women and children.
trying to remove
Wow.
Ukraine. So like in the ground that they've already taken over, they have instituted Russian curriculum already. Like not propaganda. I mean, like Ukraine no longer is a country. Here's Russian school books in all of the ground that they've taken. Every one of they're already by a Hitler type approach. You know, the storm across the border, kill every kind of resistance that you meet, and then start instituting this barrage of propaganda, which just
How effective
dilutes.
is the propaganda? Like
It's
how
very effective.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Do you think that they are surprised? Though they say it's not going the way Putin expected it to go, and this
No,
is
it's going
hu- this is
exactly
hu-
how they wanted it to go.
Do you think that he's not by how long this is taking, or is that's just media saying that he's losing?
Oh, he's not losing.
He's not.
No. If they don't get help, it's a foregone conclusion that they're done.
What kind of help? Like military?
Like NATO help.
Yeah.
You know, just think about for a second. The new Russian border is going to be Finland, Poland. You know, the new Russia goes all the way to Poland. Think about that.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever think that was what? That's right now.
Yeah.
What do you think it is too about like governments or whatever they want to call it, about like the Taliban, like the stupidity of them as the U.S. is leaving to be doing things like hunting these translators and like already pulling girls out of school? Like why don't you just let the U.S. leave and then do it? I was shocked by how fast they started being dicks. Like you almost.
What are we gonna do?
I don't know, but
You're
it
gonna
just
drop
seemed
a
like
bomb on?
Yeah,
like,
no.
We already did that for 20 years.
it just seemed like a bad strategy. Like you figured they would just go, all right, get out, and then
There's no consequence.
No, they wanted us to see it.
they did.
They wanted us to see it.
Like you just
They-
wasted all your time. And want you to know.
So
They were
once-
twisting the knife every inch that we moved back.
Wow.
And I mean, like the stories that we personally saw.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. The ROE, the rules of engagement for the military, were that they could not go outside the wire. So they couldn't leave unless there was an American in harm's way. And so, you know, our team had different rules constantly. But there were situations where, you know, if the crowd got unruly, they would just dump an AK mag into the crowd and just kill people. And the U.S. government, the military, couldn't do anything.
Just had to stand there.
They just had to stand there and watch. You know, there was another situation where, you know, a woman that, you know, a group was looking for, you know, they were within arm's length, and the Taliban just
Got to her first.
Just put her on the car and shot her in the head.
On their car. Like, put the girl on the car, looked at them directly in the eyes, and executed this girl. And it was like, there's nothing you can do about it. This is my Afghanistan.
And what is the motive behind giving the military that type of a directive, saying you have to just stand here and watch this?
There was a period of time where it went, when it's a military operation, you can go out and create a perimeter, and you can do whatever you need to do.
And the operation is called a NEO, non-combatant evacuation operation, and that is a military operation. And when a NEO takes place, there's some really things that happen. This was not a NEO.
So the State Department was given control of the operation, and as soon as the State Department is given control, they run everything like an embassy. So think about every movie you've ever seen where, like, someone's running to the embassy, and once they get in, they're safe. It's that kind of thought process.
So the
Where
airport,
it's like, we'll take responsibility of this little block of space that we have.
the airport became the embassy, and then everything outside of it was the host nation country.
I mean, it's literally like base when you're playing tag or whatever. Like, make it to base, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, lo siento mucho, man.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't it almost like sometimes it seems like it's like, well, if we just pretend it's not happening, it won't happen. Like, what was the embassy takeover? It was when Carter was president, and it was somewhere in the Middle East. There was an embassy takeover, and I think they weren't allowed to fire on the people attacking the embassy, and it's almost like this weird hope that if we just don't engage, it will stop and they'll go away on their own.
I mean, I have a different approach to all that, like violence and strength and power. Like if they only knew what the Marines and those embassies could do, but they don't, because they know that their hands are tied. Just occasionally, just let them have a little reminder of what it looks like when you let that pit bull that's been starved in a cage and just wants to get in a fight all the time, gets out of the cage, and then tears something apart.
Just
and then
twist the knife in the other direction.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we can twist the knife too.
Yeah, we can do this too, man. Do you want to see what these Marines can do? Like, these guys are studs.
Because it does. I guess makes us look weak, or I guess, like they said that one of the things that motivated bin Laden was seeing the troops pull out of, what was when Clinton pulled out those troops out of, I forget where they were, but there was a bunch got pulled out. They said they see a few American bodies, they pull all the troops out. And they said that kind of emboldened bin Laden.
Was Afghanistan, was that inevitable, or would there have been a way to get troops out?
Oh, there are really, I mean, like you go back to like Sun Tzu era about how to withdraw troops. You know, like you've Dunkirk. There's lots of examples about how to move off. Nowhere in any playbook is it like, do you know what we should do? Let's just give up every crucial strategic piece of land to the enemy while we're doing this. So the way that you do it is you keep strategic pieces of land while you fall back to efficient, effective places to move all of your forces out while you maintain these strategic positions, and then you collapse and fall out. Instead, it was just like, cool, peace out. Like, that's wild.
Yeah.
And, Ukraine's like the opposite of this, where ultimately the people are still screwed. So save our allies having to go to Ukraine. Like, we repeated the same logistical process of Afghanistan, but instead of getting things out, we're also getting things in. And then Afghanistan was just getting people out, but it's kind of the same efficient logistics in reverse.
Now, as guys who get shit done, when you hear something like this Texas shooting, and everyone's calling the cops cowards and they should have went in, what is your take on that? Like, do you think that they were just being afraid, or do you think that they were told not to go in and wanted to go in but weren't permitted to?
I have lots of thoughts on this. I've actually been spending almost nonstop every time that I haven't been working writing about these active shooters. It's a combination. The police are what we made them. The police are the politically correct if we're going to call them cowards and how they behaved, that's what we've forced them to become, where we want them to not have the initiative, not to be, kicking in doors to go and do things. Is this hostage rescue? Is this an active shooter? We have two different policies. One, for a hostage rescue, they're not allowed to go in unless we have specific people in place. If you go into a hostage rescue situation at the wrong time, the hostages will get executed.
Right.
So they thought this was a hostage rescue situation, so they started emplacing people, waiting for the right moment to go in. And if a trigger happens where the hostage taker starts executing hostages, then they immediately go in. Well, there was confusion in the way that the communication was happening. There was a system breakdown with the dispatch. All of this litany of excuses. But these are all responsive things. Like, we're talking like, we have to make our schools hard targets. Do we need to arm teachers? Do we need to train cops differently? Yes, yes, and yes. But we also need to go upstream to where the problem is, the origin of what is unhealthy about these young men that are going out and doing these shootings. What is this mental health crisis where these people are going, these young men are going and murdering children? Like, what has gone wrong with us culturally and as a society where this is now commonplace? I would rather solve that, and I really, really understand what is going wrong here, and we have to start having conversations about what it means to be a young man. And we started talking about a little bit about failure and about struggling and about embracing masculinity and addressing this is part of the process of becoming a human. We've taken all of those opportunities away. Yes, we can fix the school and make them hard targets. Yes, we can train teachers to become. If you defund them, if you remove their opportunity to train them, you tell them that they're not supposed to go out and be heroes. They're not supposed to, be patriots. They're not supposed to be protectors. I'd rather have them be mental health experts. Well, you can be a mental health expert before the shooting happens, but when the shooting starts, you got to go in there and be a badass, and you got to cave that dude's face in. And if you don't, kids are going to die. And you can't have both.
Right. What do you think the problem is with young men? You think it's just dealing with their displaced masculinity, or is it all mental health, or what do you think the problem is with them?
Man, so this is a complex problem that has to be from Hollywood asking. We have these anti-gun actors that then go and play in every single movie that they can get streaming, where they're killing 100 people, but then they step off camera and the hypocrisy that comes out of their mouth. Hollywood needs to take a degree of blame for accepting violence as just commonplace. Video games, the lack of masculine opportunities for young men. We've neutered them, we've emasculated them, and then there's nothing more dangerous than an unhealthy young man. Going overseas, in North Africa, in the Middle East, the most dangerous people on the planet are the 13-year-olds with a machete. They're the scariest people. Going down into South America and counter humor trafficking, counter drug operations, scariest kids on the street, the one with the cell phone, the 11-year-old kid looking at me, that's the most dangerous kid on the street. And now we come up here and we are not only empowering them to be unhealthy, but then we're removing every single mechanism that could fix them, make them healthy. Like sports competitively, a nuclear family with loving mother and father, the drugs that we are pumping into them. We lock them up for 2 years. We don't let them participate in anything. And then you think you're going to have like what was a 15-year-old that is now a 17-year-old? You think that's going to be a healthy 17-year-old?
Yeah. But don't you think that, because when you see a lot of the people that do this stuff, there are people who genetically are going to fail at sports. They're not going to get good at sports, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes, obviously.
Yeah, you're sitting with two of them.
So, right. So that's it. So, like, isn't there, like, what about that? What about the people who it's
adaptation
make them crazier, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to be shitty at sports, and the popular guy is going to get the girl, and he's going to be good at sports, and it's going to be like, fuck you, you suck.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get better.
Adaptation's the most beautiful thing, and it's one of the most beautiful things about humans. Like, we are so imperfectly perfect, where, you can see a marathoner and you can see a power lifter. You can be like, how is this the same species? Like, we adapt to whatever the modality is that we're doing. When it comes to failure and pain is really the truthful thing that shapes humans. And like, if I put my hand on something hot, I'm like, ooh, that hurt, right? If I go and I'm enough, I'm like, oh, that hurt, and that pain's important. And then I find a different partner that doesn't have those same characteristics. But
I was going to say, you go get money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or I seek out more women like that because it turns me on when she cheats.
But there is an adaptation that makes me survive. Right. And for that adaptation process, it goes both ways. Like, so he starts doing sports. Okay, he fails at sports. Great. That's okay.
Yeah.
So then he goes and does chess. Then he goes and does spelling competitions. Or then he just becomes and starts programming and figures out a new way to get him, an X-ray machine and identify cancer. Like, awesome.
What are you not good at? Like, because you're good. You seem like you're one of those guys who's good at everything. But what is something that you want to do or that you wish you were good at that you just inherently stink at?
He's terrible at throwing balls.
Oh, right.
I've been practicing.
He is have to throw a first pitch. He grew up in combat sports. He grew up in so if it involves like suffering, running, lifting things, or beating people up, he's great at it. But if you need to like throw a football, it's like watching like a pelican try to throw a football.
Yeah, humiliating. When I got to Special Forces, we went to Myrtle Beach, which is in North Carolina. And I went out with my team. It's like all these Adonis Greek god-looking dudes, and we're just all chiseled. And like they're throwing balls, trying to impress the ladies on the sand.
It's like the volleyball scene in Top
Gun.
Yeah,
100%. Like, we're oiled up. And like I catch the ball and I throw the ball. And the ball like looks like this weird goose that just got shot, and the ball like just flounders to the ground. And the team comes in and is like, "Listen, Tim, if you touch that fucking football again, we will murder you in the ocean right here." So then every day after work for months, I would go out and then have to have like football throwing practice to make me not look so stupid.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's humiliating.
But
important moments.
I guess so, yeah, but you put your energy at least into combat sports, so is there that feeling too, like if you're getting criticized for something, like to know that you can strangle somebody? Is that thought there even if you don't do it?
Man, I love so everything that we do this AAR, an after action review, where if people I run these courses, shooting, self-defense, all these, and somebody was like, "Man, that was amazing." So like, I don't care. Could you write me something that's bad? Can you tell me something that wasn't good about what we showed you? Can you tell me how we could have done something better? I really care about that criticism. And when people are looking at something that I do, and again, it's that failure and that struggle and that pain and that process, and I value that over all things. So instead of somebody sitting here and saying something that I did incorrectly and me being like, "Man, I could strangle you," instead I'm like, "Man, you just gave me
helpful, yeah."
Nuggets
but what if they're being a shithead though? Like, what if you're not doing it? Not if it's not constructive. You're not even doing it incorrectly. It's just like
people that can fight don't start fights. It's not always true. There's always the exception, but for the
Very
most
rare.
part, like if you do combat sport, like fighting a child.
Yeah.
It really is. Like
I get it.
If somebody doesn't know how to fight, everyone thinks they can fight, but if somebody doesn't know how to fight, it's like fighting a child. Like, they can't hurt you unless they get exceedingly lucky or they're just enormous and you didn't see it coming. But like fighting this guy, like I've been doing it for years. It's unpleasant. I've been grappling since 1987. Ask me how many times I've beaten him.
How many times?
0
Really?
times. Yeah, 0 times. Yeah.
Since 1987.
I off balanced.
It's a lot of years.
Yeah.
I off balanced him on a throw once, like almost threw him, and It was the biggest mistake of my life.
Yeah.
It was like because
I remember that.
he loses control.
The one.
Yeah. Notice I didn't say I threw him.
Well,
It
isn't
was
that what
close.
happened when Chuck, like you were training with Liddell and he was kind of taking it easy on you or being kind of gentle with you?
Yeah, and I hit him. Wah. Man, I love Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
In my book, there's a story about my debut professional fight. I lost to a guy that I had just beaten a few weeks before on an amateur card, and so I lose my professional debut. I'm training at the pit. I'm humiliated. You know, John Hackelman and Glover Teixeira, who's currently light heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
Like they're all in the gym. Scott Adams, and like I have to walk back in as like the nobody loser training at the pit with UFC champions, and I'm now 0-1. And I win one fight, and then Chuck takes me, pays for my flight, pays for my food, pays for a YMCA for me to cut weight, and then corners me in my first title fight in an 8-man tournament at the Extreme Cage Fighting Championship, and for a nobody kid. So like I can't say enough things about Chuck, great things about Chuck, but I really hate how hard he hit.
Well, the book is out today. It's called Scars and Stripes. It's Tim Kennedy's story, and I mean, both of you guys are fascinating guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just so much to draw from just because of all the experiences that you've both had that most of us will never come near. Thank God.
Our lives are very different. We could talk probably for about 6 hours, and we could each go, I've never done that. You have very different existence.
Yeah. That's beautiful, though. I love being human, man. I love different experiences.
You can go to timkennedy.com to get the book and everything. Grab it. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
you got to get out of here.
Yeah, I know you guys have other press.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
The
Thanks
rest
so
of
much
you,
for having us.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.